Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for our 39th episode of the Restaurant Dealmaker Show, where we discuss pertinent topics regarding the food and beverage industry with industry professionals. I had the pleasure of meeting Ziff Cool, our co-host today, when she contacted me recently to help her with a valuation for her restaurant, Flea Street in Menlo Park. When she told me that she operated the restaurant since 1980, it was hard to believe, as I rarely have the opportunity to meet someone that has owned and operated a restaurant for that length of time. Jesse founded Flea Street, which has been a Silicon Valley favorite as the restaurant exemplifies farm-to-table, new American cuisine. Flea Street embraces sustainability and supports local farmers, fishermen, ranchers, and vintners. With a focus on fresh, in-season, organic, and locally sourced ingredients, the menu showcases the region and seasons. From Pacific-caught seafood to thoughtfully procured produce and grass-fed or pasture-raised meats, every dish reflects a commitment to quality and responsible dining. In true understated Silicon Valley style, Flea Street Restaurant is situated in a boxy beige building opposite a gas station on a corner of Alameda de las Pulgas. Pulgas is Spanish for flea, hence the name Flea Street. Jesse prioritized organic and farm-to-fork sourcing long before they were buzzwords, and she has gardens in the backyard of her restaurant where she grows some of the food she serves to support this theme. Celebrities are no strangers to Flea Street. Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the co-founders of Google, came into Flea Street one night with former Vice President Al Gore. When Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, was recruiting Sheryl Sandberg to Facebook, they met up at Flea Street. It is a favorite place for Sandberg, who even did an interview with Oprah Winfrey in the restaurant. Ayesha and Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors have been spotted at Flea Street, and Jesse cooked for Joan Baez, who lives in the neighborhood and frequents the restaurant several times a month. Jesse catered Chelsea Clinton's party when she graduated from Stanford, and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates had dinner in Jesse's home kitchen and discussed the world malaria problem when they ate. Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, ate at Flea Street, as well as actress Michelle Pfeiffer, and many more. In addition to Jesse's success of operating one of the leading organic restaurants in the country, Jesse has been dedicated to sustainable agriculture and cuisine for over 4 decades as a writer, spokesperson, and consultant for eco-conscious food service. Jesse's the author of 7 cookbooks, and throughout the years has written for dozens of publications, appeared on numerous TV shows, including the Today Show, the Food Network, and Bay TV's Bay Cafe. She founded 5 restaurants starting in 1976, with one of the first organic restaurants in the country, Late for the Train in Menlo Park, near the train tracks, hence the name Train in the name. Jess has been a lecturer for Stanford's Department of Education and the Riker Center, a wonderful youth center. She also created Farm Fresh at Stanford Hospital, an organic local menu option for staff and patients, as well as operated the cafe at the Cantor Museum at Stanford for many years. Jesse invites the opportunity to mentor others, especially women, embarking on their career in food industry. She loves sharing her own mistakes, supporting others in this very tough business, which she finds gratifying. And she loves long hikes, which allow her to devour more of all that she loves in life, delicious food and a nightly martini. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Jesse and welcome her to the show and ask her the first question. Jesse, although I've read about your background and we've discussed it to some extent, I think it is more important that our audience hears it directly from you. So could you please tell us about your family background and the influences of your family on you and your career today? Welcome.
Thank you, Steve, for having me on this show, and your introduction brought back a lot of memories. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We forget as we get older, and I thought, wow, that was my life. It's like sitting outside and looking in. I started as a girl in a small coal mining town in Western Pennsylvania, and half the family were Jewish and half the family were Catholic, and Italian Jews love to eat and cook. And so I was brought up around ethical food without knowing what it really was. My uncle had the slaughterhouse. My dad grew organic vegetables in the yard, in his little grocery store, which was under my grandparents' house. He made everything himself. He even had his own bakery. So I really didn't know different. And what I actually wanted was to get as far away from it as possible. So I went to college. I thought, oh, I don't want anything to do with food. And when I got to a point where I had to survive, the most natural thing for me to do to keep myself alive was to cook.
And you certainly have done a great job doing that.
I
Wow.
still love cooking.
Yeah.
Cooking.
So I mean, you don't enjoy covering a whole shift though at this point in your life, do you? I mean,
Too
going and cooking.
No, but I've been working really hard again. But
Yes.
no,
Yes.
I couldn't do it. I would get too frustrated. Plus, the older you get, the more honest you are. So I would probably, be swearing more than most girl chefs on the line at this point. But I certainly have. And food is love. And now food is love for oneself and food is love for the others. So now it's such an honor to have lasted this long and actually be able to love the people who work with me.
Right. So you've had, per our discussion, some very interesting experiences in your life. Can you explain some of your early challenges in the business and, you know, how you learned from those challenges to, make you a stronger, more effective restaurateur today?
When I arrived in California in 1975, having met someone hitchhiking who happened to be from Palo Alto, a fact that my children are very grateful that we didn't end up in, some very small town in the Midwest. We ended up in Palo Alto. I think because I didn't actually understand business, didn't really know that I was going to be in the restaurant industry, that I was just a cook, didn't go to culinary school, and was a woman in the 70s, a quote, hippie love child woman who believed in cooking food with no artificial chemicals or preservatives or additives. I, I was often called lunatic fringe, and I didn't know any other way to do it. I felt like to do it other than the way I was taught, which was with pure, real food, would not have been respectful. And you'll hear me use the word respectful a lot. So I think the biggest challenges were being a woman, being totally into organic and local. And even though I'm in California, back then there was nothing. No one was bringing organic to the back door. I did hire people to go and get it. Not being classically trained with the boys. And as I look back on my life, I take responsibility for allowing myself to be bullied or be kind of walked over because I wasn't that kind of male famous, or I didn't always follow the French culinary cooking techniques. I believed in very simple clean, direct food, which of course now is very fashionable. I mean, who would have thought coming from something so hard that they made fun of me for being organic, but the food was always good, so they came back, to fast forward to a place where I guess I'm trendy now and I fought the trends. So that
So,
was amazing. And I was a single parent, sorry, in the midst of all
yeah,
that.
sure, sure. So was it your family orientation in the food service business that sort of ingrained this philosophy of organic and no chemicals and health orientation at a time when that was sort of a foreign notion generally, 30, 40 years ago?
So this was almost 50 years ago now because I
Okay.
started in 76. And yes, it was my family that taught me that that's the way you buy food, that's the way you care about your family, that's the way you care about others in the community. And though people at that time would say, oh, it doesn't matter if there are chemicals in the potatoes or strawberries, you're just going to eat a few. And I thought, well, my staff are standing, the first restaurant was breakfast, so a lot of potatoes. My staff are standing over boxes of potatoes. I can't poison them. And my family taught me that. Actually, I remember a funny story. One time when I was having one of my many financial struggles, my mother stood behind me and said, Jesse, no one will know that it's not organic. That they're not going to know when you put the food on the table and like you're really struggling. You've got to stop this. And I turned around and looked at her. I said, but you taught me that I can't do that. That I have to live a life of honesty. So yes, my family and my parents moved out here and helped me open the restaurant.
Oh, nice.
I'm a
So was it your parents that ingrained this philosophy of, no chemicals, all natural food? Where did they get this concept? Where did they learn it from?
Jewish and Italian and Polish.
Uh,
I mean, it's food. And
yes,
so though I learned traditions, I was the first girl. I was brought up with all boys, had sons. I mean, I've been around so many boys, but I was the first girl in the family. So they let me cook with them. I cooked with the bubbies and the nanas. I cooked with, you know, my aunt who was a strict Catholic and Croatian. They would swoop me up and teach me how to make halupkis and teach me how to make um, brisket and teach me how to make pickled tongue and teach me how to make homemade ravioli. I
that's
mean,
cool.
I learned how to cook from them. And my dad
Yes.
was a cook. My dad cooked for his whole staff, which is how I learned about feeding the people who work with you. My dad made family meal every day from all the scraps.
Yeah.
So I
Great. Well, so you have a very interesting philosophy, which is somewhat contrary to the philosophy I hear most restaurateurs espouse, and that is basically that the customer comes last. Uh, and so I'm very curious to know, how you came about, and what's behind that philosophy that the customer comes last. Because
I
I always thought the customer comes first.
I know. I saw the look on your face. I actually you and I've talked about this, but I consulted at Stanford Hospital for 11 years. And I remember walking into the CEO's office. I said, I got to try this one more time. And I looked at him, I said, how about the patient comes last? He said, no. You're not going to do that one here. But but for me, the customer coming last means that if you take care of the environment, if you don't poison food, if you don't poison uh, the water and the soil, but you nurture it, and if you take care of the people who are growing it and pay everybody from beginning to end well, if then when the food comes to the back door and you acknowledge the person delivering it or maybe even feed them, and then you take care of the people cooking and baking in the kitchen and you feed them a good meal, and then you take care of your service staff, I know that the customer gets taken care of. When you walk into Flea Street, I hear this all the time. People say everybody's working really hard and together. And I said, and I always say that's because the core value is we're taking care of all the people. And of course, we're going to take care of you. And we get high ratings for service. But I believe they feel the genuineness. They're not just working for tips or service charge or, they're working because there are core values there. I know it works. How about that?
Sure, sure. And your response segues into my next question, which is your interesting philosophy of no tipping. And can you explain how this program works and how this ties into the large number of long-term devoted employees that have been working for you for decades? This no tipping notion, how does this work?
So before COVID, the restaurant industry was in trouble. And you know that, Steve, because you know all of us and you were in the industry yourself. And it was because um, cooks were never respected or paid well. They often were looked at second-class citizens, whether they had a different colored skin or had talked a different language. Even if they put out the best food, and were talented, they were not respected or paid well. The service staff would show up and the customer would see them for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and they gave them all the money. During COVID, when we shut down, the only people who stayed with us were the cooks. And I mentioned with you that I was on some Zooms with friends like Danny Meyer and David Mayfield, and I came up with what I call heart of the house. And we're still doing it, though. Many restaurants have kind of backpedaled a little bit, but heart of the house meant that everybody from the person who washes the dishes and keeps that bathroom clean to the person that you meet at the table at the bar share equitably with what is left on the table. It's different though in the different states. Like in the state of California, I have to add a service charge to keep it equitable. Poor Danny Meyer in the state of New York, it's not legal to do that. He could not, once the restaurant opened, add the 20%. So all the no tipping is instead of because most people tip 20%, right? Most people
Yes.
tip 20%.
Sure.
Instead of you adding the 20% at the end, it's included. And when it's included, I distribute it. I own it. My restaurant's completely transparent. They get 100% of that money. I actually pay taxes on it. They get 100% of that money. And we divide it according to their position. And so I've had people there there are a few new people in the front, young kids, but most of them have been there from 5 to 30 years. And
Wow.
my job is to take care of them because their job is to take care of me and all the guests and all the people who are involved in that plate of food or that beauty that's at the table with our guests. So
Yes.
did I answer that, Steve?
Yeah, you did. But I know that since most food servers are used to getting, most of the tips, do you have a harder time getting a high caliber of food server because they're in a shared mode versus getting, the majority of the tips that are generated? Have you found that to be an issue?
Yes, it's an issue, but our philosophy at the restaurant is that we are training rising stars, that we will take young people who are often kinder and more considerate and don't have an oh, what do I want to say? Don't have an attitude just like somebody who's a chef and thinks they are the chief. We love
Mhm.
thinking that we are chefs, but we are really cooks, all of us. And in the front, rather than somebody thinking they're a professional, they are someone who's of service. And we during COVID, we got rid of the fine dining tag too. We started calling it thoughtful dining.
That's good.
And we do things like there's a young man who's been with us now for 3.5 years, and I'm sending him to sommelier school. And he's
Oh, nice.
22 years old or 23 years old. Or we'll find ways of educating these young people. And personally, they are so grateful and happy and take care of everybody. They get it. They
Yes.
don't think they deserve everything. So the answer is actually yes, it's not easy.
Yes.
But it's really warming and exciting. And our managers, even the front of the house managers, said, do not backpedal. Do not go back to the old way. Stay with it. So we're doing it.
Right. That's wonderful. That's great. And I think the longevity speaks for itself. I mean, they obviously are in sync with you and the philosophy, and service is important, but taking care of your customers is definitely not number one. That's cool. Makes
But
sense on
I
the way you
actually think
explained it.
I actually think both are number one. I don't think
Yes.
one. It's just I would explain that because I've done many interviews on this. It's not that I think they deserve less.
Yes.
That if that food is not delicious and beautiful, they're not getting the tip. So the all-inclusive means we include it, and we have a tagline on the guest check that says you don't have to do any more. Should you want to, there's a line, but
Yes.
all included. And it's taking care of the staff this is very European.
Yes.
It's just more
Yeah,
expensive here, but it's how it is in Europe. It's no different.
sure. do a reasonable percentage of your customers actually give more than the 20% that's built into the tip, into the tag?
They do.
They do. Yeah.
And all of that goes to the service staff, by the way.
Yeah.
To
That's very
motivate
nice.
them a little bit, that goes to them.
Right.
But also because we all know that labor and food are margins that we have to, well, and rent are the margins we have to play with the most. With that, I'm able to give them 2 weeks paid a year. They get 2 weeks vacation at $20 an hour.
Nice.
Average out. It's amazing. Well, it's not, it shouldn't be amazing. So I think all this is doing is kind of breaking something, going a different direction with something that was broken and not okay.
Yes.
They get 2 weeks paid, full-time and part-time. They get medical and dental if they choose to have it. Um, yeah.
That's cool. That's really wonderful. Yeah. Well, it's all about the people. There's no question about it. I mean, I've been in many dining situations where the food was just so, but the service was fabulous. And I had no reluctance to go back to those restaurants again because the service was so wonderful, and they just figured they had an off night in the kitchen and, we'll give them another shot. But and I've seen other situations where the food's been great, but the service has been terrible. And I think more people are apt not to come back in that kind of situation versus, the first situation I described. Um, we've had numerous conversations about your various financial challenges over the years and how you've been on the brink of bankruptcy many times, and you've obviously overcome those financial challenges. Are there any words you want to share with us regarding that whole situation?
Well, being, uh, there was one moment in time where I would not even use the word chef. I called myself cooker person. And I got interviewed for it because I didn't want any arrogance, having gone through so many challenges in surviving in this, in the restaurant world. And I think it's tenacity. I think it's, we have to be able to go to sleep at night having a disastrous night, or, the fryer opening up on the floor because somebody didn't didn't remember to do it right, or imperfections. To get up in the morning and be the one who can go back in there and say, let it go, like a good parent. You don't get angry at somebody unless they're being malicious. It's okay. Let's just start again. So I've had to do that with myself. I also mentioned with you that one of those times where um, I was nearly going bankrupt, I hired an advisor who helped me, a man named Bob Joy, who was a very important person to me.
Right.
Um, and he told me he had never seen anything as bad in his life as my business. And I said, really? And I said, well, but the food is good. He said, yes, but oh my God, you have no clue how to run a business. I said, no, I don't. So he took 10 years to teach me a new language, QuickBooks, and how to run a business. And I was always able to count, but when I had 3 restaurants going and TV shows and cookbooks and all that, you can't count anything anymore.
Yeah.
So he taught me how to be a businesswoman, and I actually am a pretty good woman now, even though I make mistakes. I also think it's the forgiveness of oneself and everyone else. And having been on welfare at the beginning of my oldest boy's life, I have a real sense of how to live, how to go like this, go small, and then expand. I had the ability to trust that that's going to work, and that it's my job as the leader to get everybody else to ebb and flow. Because I mean, we're in one of those right now, but in
Yes.
50 years, I've certainly seen financial crisis. Oh my God, 9/11. For
Yeah.
3 months, there was nobody in the restaurant. So it's like
Right.
somebody the other day has worked with me for 17 years said, I remember when you had 2 waiters and a busser.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah. The business is a very erratic one. The restaurant industry as a role. And but people still may enjoy going out. It's obviously satisfying themselves with food, but it's a whole entertainment experience as well. um, and so I think there will always be a market. It's just unfortunately the challenges of the lack of disposable income for so many people. Maybe not so much in your particular demographic, but if you look at the the country overall, it's definitely they don't there's not as much dollars available to the average person to go out and eat out as much as they would like to. Um, and hopefully things will change in that regard.
It's actually
Uh,
the same thing is happening here.
yes,
I do live in somewhat of a bubble, but
yes,
there's still a lot of caution. And the hard thing is that the service people who take care of people who have a little more cannot live here anymore. So
yes,
there are so many challenges, and all we have to do as business people is go along with the challenges that everyone else is having. And I also don't go in debt, Steve. I mean,
yeah.
I got that.
That's great.
I never go in debt. It's like if something needs fixed, we've got to wait till we have the money. And I'm a counter. I count everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. So, what do you see as our most pressing food issues today, being the food expert that you are?
Well, I'm not a food expert. I just have a perspective on the way, and each of us does. It's interesting because in Menlo Park, where I've been for 50 years, all these new restaurants are coming in because they think there is money and they don't realize there's no one to work. And they're coming down from the city, or they're opening some great restaurants that are multi. They have a couple of them so they can, I guess, help each other. But I think one of the I'm gonna start that one over because I lost my train of thought. Let's cut. And could you ask that question again, Steve?
Sure. Um, what do you see as our most pressing food issues today?
So for me, it's because I have some values about what quality of food means and am a stickler. I mean, all our wines are organic and from the local mountains, and our food is truly without any preservatives or chemicals. It's truly clean and organic. I think one of the challenges is going to be for all of us where we get our food where we get our food from. Because I'm local, I won't have as many problems. But I think the prices are going to keep rising because not only tariffs, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there right now in the world, um, but also people, especially after COVID, want to make more money, want to have a different lifestyle. The old philosophy of when we were kids doesn't exist anymore. And for people to buy a house, even in the Midwest, is getting harder and harder. So I think the work ethic is one of the hardest things we're facing. People who still want to go into service industries, and I include healthcare in that, and access to healthy food that does not pollute our environment. How to understand where our food comes from, how to realize that hospitals might be very full of people who have not been eating well or have been eating a lot of food that has chemicals and preservatives in it. And then connecting to what does that mean for the environment? It's a big shift from not from believing that big and cheap was good, no matter where we got it, no matter what it did to the environment. That's I believe that awareness is beginning to change with the next generations. And I find that exciting, but I think that's going to cost people money.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So, of all the many accomplishments you've achieved throughout your career, what single accomplishment has been most meaningful to you?
That's a big question. They're, especially looking back over 50 years. But I think I remember one moment where I was sitting at a bar having a drink with my sweetheart, who was a farmer. And he introduced me to the bartender. He said, "Oh, this is Jessie, and she's a restaurant owner, but she's an author." I looked at him and said, "I'm not an author, I'm a cook." He said, "Jessie, you have like a lot of cookbooks and you've been writing for a lot of magazines." I said, "Yes, but but that's not me." So I think one of the biggest things I look back on is that I actually did all that, wrote all those books and did it all. And in the meantime, as a single woman with two amazing sons who are grown now, and that it was so hard for me to ever think I was a good restaurant owner or a good mom. To be a woman who had done that, and at this time in my life realized that, oh my God, I did it. And my children forgive me for never showing up for everything. that I accomplished these amazing children whom am around a lot now, but was not around because I worked all the time. If they wanted to see me, they had to come to the restaurant and work. That
Yeah,
looking back, wow, I'm still alive and I actually did it. Pretty cool.
it is cool.
Who would have
Really cool.
thought?
Right?
Even they
Yeah.
say, who would have thought, Mom, you were just this crazy hippie who believed in organics and food and didn't have a clue about business. Apologize to people for charging them for food at the very beginning. Uh, 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 your own chaos, who you are. Who would have thought that somehow all of that came together? And it did, with the help of
Yeah,
many others, with the help of many others. Yes.
sure. Yeah. And do you find that you spend more quality time with your grandchildren than you do with your children because of you having a little bit more flexibility now than perhaps you had, when you were raising your kids? Because that's what I have found. In fact, I get ridiculed by my kids and say, "Gee, Dad, how come you haven't spent as much time with me as you spend with my kids?" Because obviously when I was in the restaurant business and we had 24-hour, 7-day a week restaurants, it was, you know, 90, 100-hour weeks. It was, ridiculous. But so what is, are you able to, do you find you have more flexibility to spend time with your grandchildren than you did with your kids?
Well, my grandchildren are
When,
older than yours. I have a 25-year-old and a 19-year-old.
yes.
But I spend more time with my kids. And I do, like, I'm driving to San Luis Obispo to be with my granddaughter, and I'm taking her to this amazing light show.
Oh, nice.
And I've been to Tokyo, where my grandson lives, and went to a wedding of the kids he knew, because he spent a lot of time with me last weekend. So I'm very close to them. But I'd say more important to me, or equally as important, is that I spend time with my two boys. And we do dinner a lot together. And
Hmm.
we go out together. And I often ask them, can I just have you alone? Can
Hmm.
you and I go out and eat and drink? And can I just come and hang out in your garden? That if I leave this planet tomorrow with all that I didn't do, I will I will close my eyes feeling like, oh, this makes me a little emotional, feeling like it's okay now and they're okay and that we really love and care
Nice.
for each other and we cook for each other and we all like to have a cocktail. So
That's very good. Very nice. Very nice.
I hope I answered that, but
Yeah. 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 You certainly covered that well. Very well. In studying your background, I've heard you state that old world ethics is an important part of your business philosophy. Old world ethics. Can you explain what this means to you?
it used to be people would ask what kind of restaurant Flea Street was, and I couldn't answer them. And finally, my youngest son Jonas said, Mom, you're an ingredient-driven restaurant. That's what you can say. And lately, I've been feeling this real sense, especially as people from all over the world come in, that we are not California cuisine. Because sometimes California cuisine is just this whatever trend it's going through. I feel like I could be anywhere in the world and even in the Midwest, because remember, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, and I would have this kind of restaurant in Western Pennsylvania. Um, I feel like when you are at Flea Street, what you sense is that it's very close to community. And the old world way was to respect the people who were near you, the people who maybe baked the bread or grew the food, or who was the milkman back then. We actually have a guy who delivers, actually, he's called Michael the Milkman. We still have someone doing that. And in the 80s, when I was only buying Santa Cruz Mountain wines and throw organic on top of that, they were angry at me. Now they think it's the coolest thing because when people travel, in Italy or Portugal or France or New Zealand, or they're drinking the local wine. So we've just always been doing it. So I always think that those are old world ethics, that you are truly connected and respected to where you belong and who you are. And I spoke with uh, uh, I'm in the county of San Mateo, and this used to be, so Silicon Valley was not Silicon Valley, it was the Valley of Heart's Delight because it was all orchards. And we still buy from some of those people, and we're still trying to save farmland. And I met with the county commissioner yesterday because we're trying to once again get more food from the farm to here and save farmland. Because as you know, beautiful farmland in California and the coast is going to be worth a lot of money, more than what farmers can possibly generate. So I looked at, his name is Ray Mueller, he's the county commissioner. I said, Ray, I am not a famous person. I'm an old-fashioned, old world girl. I am like, so what we all talk about, I belong here. And my work is here. And I'm so grateful. And I'm not just saying this, I'm so grateful to this community for keeping me alive for 50 years, being an organic, whatever. But the food has to be good, even if it's organic, it has to be good, or they will not come back. That old world just means true responsibility, connectedness, kindness, care, honesty, transparency, saying you're sorry. You do that. You do that. People did that. They didn't hurt their neighbors. They cared about them. So I think that's old world.
Yes. I wish more people practiced old world because you don't see that kind of philosophy every day for sure. That's a rarity, I think.
It's challenging. It's interesting because we don't have a Michelin star. And I've always said I don't want a Michelin star because I'm afraid with the Michelin star, then people will come in and expect that
Yeah,
rather than coming in the door. And you've been to Flea Street, it's not the greatest location. But the people who come in that door feel like they've entered something different. And in the old world, you could be driving down a road and get to this place that's like, what in the world? And why is that restaurant there? And the door opens and there's this man or woman who's welcoming you and wants you to be there. And it's transforming. And I think that's what happens. Even if sometimes the service isn't perfect, even if sometimes the food isn't as perfect as we want it, and we always want perfect food and service, there's that would happen in an old rural community, and you'd say, oh, well, next time it'll be a little better. Oh, but we love the people there.
sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, that's very nice. Very nice. So the last question I have for you, which I ask everyone because it being a former restaurateur and selling restaurants regularly and seeing all the pressure that operators are having trying to make a living and maintain, good quality service and food levels. How are you dealing with all these extraordinary challenges, of operating a restaurant today with, the shortage of employees, I guess is not so much of a problem because of your great philosophy and as a result you have terrific longevity with your employees, but the high cost of food, labor, insurance, and other expenses, it just and the ongoing new competition. I mean, how do you maintain market share and still have a reasonable, bottom line?
It's hard,
Yeah,
but it's interesting. I keep saying I've been through so many dips. I mean, 2008 and 2016.
yeah,
Others, if a new restaurant came in, everybody runs to try it out,
they try.
especially
Yeah,
in a small town, in a small area. And I think this one seems to be lasting a little bit longer. But we all talked about this yesterday in the restaurant, and I said, our job is to just be exactly who we are. We have to be as good as we can be with our food and with our care for others, with our care for the staff, so they don't go away. Even if they make less tips, the service staff, they come to us because the pressure is different or because they do get some benefits. We have to carve out who we are and stay with that, even if it's challenging. And, I'm an elder now. So as an elder, I can live on a little bit less and hopefully give it to the people who are working harder. One of my older boy, Joshua, said that to me. He said, Mom, you're on Social Security now, so that means you can pay someone else to take care of what you don't do anymore. So I do that. So I feel fortunate to be at this time in my life to take care of the staff. So the true answer is it's not easy. It's hard. I lose sleep at night sometimes worrying because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
I'm nervous sometimes. I'm a little bit anxious and picky sometimes when I'm in there, like, let's make sure it's right. And I can say, I'm sorry if I was just a little crazy, but it's not easy. And yet we all know we're going to do the best we can. So I'm hopeful, Steve, that I can keep it going a little bit longer with some really fine people who are showing up to help me.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to, the people that are working with you will, continue your philosophy and continue the great, concept that you've developed there. And hopefully it'll continue on for many more years.
But Steve, you know I have a good lease, so we'll see how that
Yeah, no,
unfolds.
we've had that discussion
We've
before.
had the
Yes,
discussion,
yes, yes,
which is really something that helped that little restaurant stay alive.
absolutely. No, yeah,
And I think also, if it's this is the 45th year, so I'm gonna have a big party because who knows?
nice.
And I don't want the party to just be a fundraiser. I want it to be something where, the community can come and I can thank them and they can be there can be a mic up somewhere where they can tell stories of 45 years of eating there.
That's nice.
But I think
That,
it's just, we don't know what's going to happen right now.
yeah, there's a lot of balls in the air, that's for sure. Anyway, well, Jesse, I want to acknowledge you for your dedication to sustainable agriculture and cuisine for more than 4 decades, and for leading the movement that introduced fresh, organic, and locally sourced ingredients into Peninsula food culture. Your unwavering commitment through the founding of 5 restaurants and the decades that followed, leading the march to bring farm to peninsula table, while expanding your accomplishments as a restaurateur, writer, spokesperson, educator, and consultant for eco-conscious food service. Even as the tech boom spawned countless VC and corporate partnerships, you developed your own local connections to include 40 plus farmers, vintners, fishermen, and ranchers with names like the Rabbit Lady, Full Belly Farm, Pasture Chick Ranch, Michael the Milkman, who you just mentioned, and Harley Farms Goat Dairy. Thank you, Jesse, for making so many contributions to our world and the informative presentation you made today, the information that you shared with us today. If someone wants to get in contact with you, Jesse, what is the best way to do so?
First of all, I'm really humbled that you decided meeting me that you wanted to have me on your show, Steve. Thank you.
Well, as I told you, I don't come across many restaurateurs that have been in business for 45 years.
Very
And I wanted to drill down and find out, well, what's this all about?
It's just really, it's like a free therapy session, being able to talk about oneself. So thank you very much.
Oh,
If they want to get in touch with me, our website is www.cooleats, COOLEATZ.com. Do I give my personal email, Steve?
sure. You like?
So I'm Jessie at
It's up to you.
cooleats.com. I'm JESSE at COOLEATZ.com.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So our future Dealmaker show co-hosts for 2025 include Charles Chuck Frank, who's a partner in CAF Restaurant Services, and he's sort of a legend in the restaurant industry, having served roles that range from director to chief financial officer to chief operating officer to president of numerous well-known restaurant companies the past 30 years, including Spectrum Foods, Il Fornaio, Poggio, Johnny Rockets, and the Daily Grill. In July, 2 of our most successful agents, Patrick Tota and Andy Maribel, who are both former restaurant owners, will co-host the popular podcast. They have a popular podcast show called the Restaurant Deal Making Exposed, and they'll be our July co-hosts. In August, Emily Winston, who's the founder and CEO of Boychik Bagels, which has been acclaimed as the best bagel in the Bay Area, and they opened its first store in Berkeley in 2019, and now currently have 9 San Francisco Bay Area locations and 1 in LA, as well as their bagels are available throughout the country through an aggressive shipping program. Then in September, in fact, Kevin Weinberg of the Walnut Creek Yacht Club, he's Today is his last day in business. I think it's his 28th anniversary of his business, and we're in the process of selling the building and the business. And Kevin is, in his mid late 60s and just got burned out, and so he's going to be our co-host in September. And he has one of the top seafood restaurants in the Bay Area. Well, he has until tonight when he closes. And then October, Dan Baker, who's a newer RRC agent. He was formerly chef owner for 21 years of Marché au Fleu, which is a top restaurant in Marin County, very high-end farm to table restaurant that he ran and operated, and I actually ended up selling. And he's also a consultant. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I certainly want to thank our co-host today, Jesse. And if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to do so is steve@restaurantrealty.com, or I can be reached toll free at 888-995-9701. Take care of yourself and take care of others. And again, Jesse, thanks so much.